I really want this to be an interactive session. So just like Sharon said, please hand over your questions, raise your hand. Sharon will be moderating while I'm in presentation mode and demo mode. I will not be able to see everything. So Sharon, please interrupt me whenever you see a question relevant to the topic that I'm handling.
I will take.
Thank you. And yeah, let's make it a good session. I have tried to keep it within 30 minutes because we have a 15-minute hard stop. So let's try to keep it within 40 minutes. And hopefully we can have all the topics handled within the time. I made it a lean back session, so I do not try to keep you updated with all the information, but give you as much information as possible and answer a lot of questions, hopefully that there are. I wanted to give you a heads up. This slide will also be at the end, but please, because this is a community event, let's make some noise, mention Teams Nation, or use the hashtag Teams Nation to talk about the event. And of course, give us feedback on how we can improve the event. And of course, the individual speakers give them feedback, because every session is a learning moment, and the next session may be even better. Then let me introduce myself. My name is Django Lohn. I live in the Netherlands. I work with InSpark, which is a Microsoft partner, on several Microsoft Cloud topics. One of that topic is, of course, the Power Platform, in which I have been a consultant for over a few years now. And I work within the business apps team, which focuses on the Power Platform. And a special shout out to Thijs. It's his birthday today. So if you are, let's make some, give him some congratulations. You visit LinkedIn and give him a Teams Nation happy birthday. Let's see if we can pull a prank on him. At the beginning of this month, I was awarded the Microsoft MVP award. So I'm happy to join the club, especially since the community has been such a great learning method for me. It's really cool to get awarded this Microsoft MVP, which just shows that I love to contribute to the community with sessions like these, and I blog a lot. Let me share my blog, nowhere365.space, and my Twitter handle. I mainly use it for Power Platform topics. And I can also recommend the powerusers.microsoft.com community. Whenever you have a question, feel free to mention me. I love to answer topics on that community also. And it's always a learning moment also for me, too, because nobody knows everything. Let's keep each other updated. So please feel free to connect, have any questions. And I already get a lot of individual questions. I often refer them to the Power Users community themselves, because if you have that question, I bet other people will have that question also, and contributing to the community, you can also be a part of that with your questions. So never experience something as a dumb question. There are not any. There are just some also some annoying people on the Power User community, which do a very good job in referencing already existing topics. Please search for the topic first before you post your question, and then everything will be probably the best way for you to go on. So this session, basically, I'm talking about the Power Platform, but because this is also Teams Nation, I want to keep it within a Teams context. So I want to handle 4 topics. Of course, some basics on the Power Platform, for if you are like a starting Power Platform enthusiast. I want to give you my view on the Power Platform and how Microsoft is presenting it. I'm gonna show you the things that I know about the modern approval of Power Automate regarding documents with the real use case. So I'm gonna demo a lot. And I want to end the session with my view on Dataverse for Teams, which is like the Power Platform, the mini Power Platform that you can have within your Microsoft Teams environment. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Power Platform solutions, and hopefully get some more info on how solutions can be added value within Microsoft Teams and this use case that I'm presenting. Okay. I don't see any questions yet. In some slides, I'm going to stop for a moment to see if there are any questions. So please forgive me if there's some awkward silence sometimes. So basically, the mission of Microsoft, which has been the mission for quite some time now, and I see it being embodied in every product that they deliver, is to empower every person and organization to achieve more. and maybe in a few years on the planet will be erased, because then we will be going to Mars, and then also outside the planet, Microsoft will probably help. And the Power Platform, from my point of view, is the embodiment of this mission, because especially within business applications, so applications for the business, are now being democratized. And with that, I mean that not only the ownership is being easy to hold the ownership with the business, but also the development with low code and no code business apps within the Power Platform. Champions, power users, ambassadors, probably one of those terms will sound familiar to you, coming from the business, will be able to create their own business application, whether it's a part of automation with Power Automate, or a cool dashboard with Power BI, or a chatbot with Power Virtual Agents, of course, a very cool looking mobile app with Power Apps. Anybody can build it these days. That's the main concept. And over the last few years, I have seen that with the customers that I have, they have like two types of Microsoft partners. They have one partner for the Dynamics part, if they are using a solution like Dynamics CRM or Dynamics Field Services, or I think Finance Operations is also a big one, when they have like that vertical column within their company using a specific Microsoft Dynamics solution. And they have another partner for the Office 365 part, where they have support for their Azure Active Directory synchronization, moving their on-prem infrastructure to the cloud, or optimizing the Office 365 environment. And those were always two kind of partners. And you always already see that still a little bit. And what I have been seeing in the last 18 to 24 months is that those two worlds are coming together more. Overlapping each other, not only in mailboxes, where you have like a Dynamics add-in, and of course where your Exchange online mailbox is already within Office 365, you have all this integration with Dynamics, but especially within the Power Platform, we can see that the low code, no code possibilities of the Power Platform is integrating those two worlds even more, and even maybe absorbing some of the options that we used to keep with partner A and the other options with partner B, that those partners are now teaming up to give you the best experience. And the Power Platform is becoming a very important tool in enabling you to get rid of that boxed mind thinking that I have partner A for this and partner B for that, and I have development team X for that one and development team Y for this application. Consider it that it will be more easy, that your added value of the business will be also the perspective from an IT point of view. That don't think in applications, don't think in apps, don't think in infrastructure, but think in processes and think in added value of the business. And that is the terminology of the business application that I'm after. Not an application like I'm using OneNote for this, or Teams for that, or Power Apps for this, or SharePoint for that. A business application is the whole of the tools, and that is enabling you to focus on your best and automate the rest, or use tools to make it a business application as a whole. So this is my point of view on the Power Platform and the trend that I see in the last few years now. And it's becoming bigger. Then have a look at the Power Platform. So basically, it started out with 3 tools. You had Power BI for your nice business analytics and your dashboards, for interactive dashboards and reports. You had Power Apps for nice user interfaces, whether it's mobile apps or apps on your laptop that you were easy to create without any code, just like Excel formulas. If this, then that, you were able to create very nice Power Apps. And Microsoft Flow, now Power Automate, for your automation, when you had like workflow requirements. And the latest addition is Power Virtual Agents, where you can create chatbots with drag and drop interface, and you create like your whole conversation without any code involved at all. And the integration of these 4 tools is becoming cooler and cooler every month. Whether you are integrating Power BI dashboards in your Power App, or integrating Power Apps within your Power BI dashboards, or automating actions behind the Power App or behind the Power BI dashboard, or combining workflows in your chatbot to make sure that you can use back-end data in your chatbot. Like a question that I often ask my chatbot within our company is, who is our lead consultant for this customer? I just ask the chatbot, who is the lead consultant for customer X or customer Y? And then the chatbot gives me back a response based on our CRM data. Because in our CRM data, we have our customers. And a part of the CRM data is that the lead consultant is also being registered on that customer level. So it's easy for a Power Automate flow to check on, hey, I'm looking for customer X, who's the lead consultant, and then I can ask him any question without me having to look at any application at all. I just have a chatbot within Microsoft Teams, which is becoming the collaboration hub even more and more with these cool new features that we had since a few months released. Dataverse for Teams, of course, the Power Platform. And it's becoming more and more integrated every month. And then at the bottom, you see the true strength of the Power Platform, as I like to say, is you have very nice tools, but none of those tools actually need to have the data stored within those tools. So you have no dependency on your back-end data, I call that, because the data can be anywhere. And that's the strength with data connectors, whether you are connecting to a Twitter feed, a LinkedIn feed, or maybe SAP, a SAP ERM database, or a SQL database, or a SharePoint list. There are over 400, I think, connectors at the moment within the Power Platform. And they are added connectors every few months. You can just subscribe any of the Microsoft feeds and you will get notified about those. And that's the strength of the Power Platform, that without writing any API, any interface, or any code, I can connect any of these tools with any data source that I want. And then I have the data available within a nice dashboard or within an app or within an automation flow that I created. Then the middle part, the AI builder, sounds a little bit far-fetched or far from the daily business, but I recommend to have really just Bing or Google on it, and you will get some real nice examples. I think the most relevant one at the moment would be something like form processing, where you can upload a PDF file and it gives you back all the information if it's like a form structured way, like an invoice. You can have AI builder look at the form and it gives you back the data. And then again, with any of the tools, you can show it in a nice dashboard, create a workflow around it, use a Power App to update information that you got from AI. And of course, the chatbot has some very nice use cases for it. So any questions thus far about this architectural before I go to the big bang of this one? Is of course the list to the connectors and the recently added icon of Dataverse, a very nice UI fluent icon where finally the old database icon can go, and we have a nice icon matching the rest of the Microsoft stack for the Dataverse. And Dataverse it used to be called the Common Data Service. I think even in a more long time ago it was XRM, where it was like your database for your CRM. Now it's like a Power Platform database out of the box, and you have all these functionalities within the Dataverse that within a database like SQL or within a relational data model that you would build in Excel or SharePoint Online, you get out of the box all these functionalities that are very hard to create yourself, like record level ownership. I think if you're working with SharePoint, the main purpose of SharePoint is, of course, to share your data. But sometimes you have that use case where you want to make sure that nobody can see every item in the SharePoint list. And then you would have to resort to unique item level permissions, which can be a hassle in SharePoint and has some limitations. And with Dataverse, you get it out of the box without any limitations about numbers at all. SharePoint has a limitation like 5,000 and 50,000 when it comes to unique permissions. And in Dataverse, you have it built in out of the box. So I can, if you haven't dived into Dataverse before, just search online. There are some real nice webinars on it. There are some real nice sessions on it. And I think I will be giving a lot of sessions in the future about Dataverse, especially since it's become part of the Microsoft Teams family. So yeah, you will never get bored if you have a Dataverse mindset and see any of the use cases that you want to create within the Power Platform. Yes. Any questions thus far? Let me check very fast.
Nope, nothing in chat so far.
Okay, so that's either very good or maybe people are zoning out. I hope not. Just keep in mind that if you have any questions, let me know. Then the demo part of my session. I want to show you my use case based on these personas. I have Anne. Anne is a manufacturing lead within the Contoso company, and she is in charge for this business app, for this process that we're going to support. She's in charge of making sure that the right documentation is available for the right persons. And they want to do that with an approval process to make sure that there's like a filter that if I have 100 documents that I want to share, maybe only 80 documents are really approved and only those 80 documents are relevant for the rest of the organization. And she has like a pilot team, and in that team is Sven. Sven is a sales representative, and he helps Anne in making sure that the documentation is right, with the right content and the right tone of voice. So using these personas, Anne would be the developer, but also the persona of submitting a document for approval. Sven would be the person approving the document, and Carlos is the call center manager who's only interested in the approved documents. So it's a very small business process, but this business process is like, I've seen it in every company that I was able to help thus far. They always have like an approval process, and it's almost always document related. And I'm going to use this use case first on Anne. Okay, let me log in with Anne. Let me try to maximize the screen. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I'm on an ultra wide screen. Hopefully this is readable. Sharon, can you confirm if 125% is good readable on your screen?
Yeah, I can see that quite clearly.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Anne was thinking about how I'm going to support this solution. Are we, like the rest of a lot of organizations, going to email documents around and hope that nobody gets lost in this jungle of emails that people always have? And she came up with the idea, I'm going to use Microsoft Teams. And within Microsoft Teams, she has a Teams team for document approval created, and she created a development version, because this is for the pilot group only, and they want to develop the solution first as a pilot. And here you can see she, out of the box, of course, has all the functionalities of Microsoft Teams, because if she want to hold a meeting, she can have a meeting. If she want to start a conversation, she can have a conversation. At mention, all out of the box in Microsoft Teams available. Within this Microsoft Teams team, she created a tab, a channel, and in the channel, she posted a tab called the Document Approval Library. And when using SharePoint, because we're using SharePoint for document storage, just like Microsoft Teams is, I just created a separate document library. I will elaborate later on that more later on. And within this document library, she wants people to stay within the collaboration hub. So he used a document library as a web tab. And because compared to the other tabs, like SharePoint, you have, of course, a lot of SharePoint integration. Not all of these tabs work with the column formatting that I'm using. I'm going to show you later on what column formatting is. But instead of using a link to SharePoint or a link to a document library, in this use case, I'm using the web tab. And that renders the SharePoint list, as you can see, very nice, cleaned up. Because when I would access the SharePoint site, you have a lot of user interface elements that for this use case is not very relevant, like the Office navigation bar, the SharePoint settings, the current navigation list. As you can see, a lot of the, in our context, I call it noise. A lot of the SharePoint noise is already stripped out of the box because Microsoft Teams sees the SharePoint site, and because it can see it's a document library, they load the document library in this nice format. Okay. Based on this setup, you can see that I have added some functionalities to this default SharePoint document library, like column formatting. And the column formatting is a way to make sure that some steps can be skipped, and it can make sure that some information is presented in a more user-friendly way instead of the traditional table view that you see here. For example, a new functionality that came in a few months ago is like the Hoover card that you can now create yourself with column formatting. And it will be something like this, where you can see, hey, the status is completed, but the red circle says it's rejected. And then I'm showing just the modification date. Hey, the flow has been run. The approval request has been assessed, and it has been rejected on May 10th. This is just a very simple column formatting that I got from an example. If there's any desire, please let me know. I can share it out of the box. It just uses the columns that you have out of the box to show this information. And with the green ones, you see that this one has been approved on May 4th. You can see that this one is pending since May 11th, and this one has never run before. So this is the power of column formatting in SharePoint Online. This is not Power Platform related, it's more SharePoint Online related. And with column formatting, I will show you how it looks like at the moment. Column formatting is, there are some nice ways to do it, but at the moment, if you want all the functionalities, JSON is like a programming language, is the way to get this working. It takes some time getting used to, especially if you're not a developer, like I'm not. I'm not a developer. I'm originally a project manager, and then I came into contact with SharePoint, from SharePoint with Office 365, and from Office 365 with Power Platform, and now I'm a business application consultant. So yeah, if you feel comfortable with IT, you will feel comfortable with the Power Platform, but sometimes, like in this case, even with SharePoint, it will take some time to get used to. So just search online for some examples, and hopefully you will get used to the JSON notation. The other way is that Microsoft is doing this more and more to keep it even easier without coding, is some out-of-the-box conditional formatting, where you just add a rule like this, and then it creates the JSON for you at the back end. You can always have a look at how the JSON looks like, because examples teach you the most. But this is like if you say, hey, if this column flow status is like completed, we're going to show the color as orange. Just save it, and let's have a look at how this will look like in my SharePoint column. Then you can see this is how it looks like. And then when you go to your formatting again, and you go to the advanced mode, you will see an example of the JSON being created, and you can use examples like this to make your own business rules. For now, I will remove my formatting, and then I go back again to the original non-formatting column. So keep in mind, column formatting within SharePoint, a nice way to make columns look easy to use. Integrate some functionalities like starting a flow, or in my case, I created here a column formatting to go directly to the edit pane of document properties. What you used to have to do is select a document, and then you could open up the information icon, and then you would have like the view form. But if people would not edit all, and they would edit here, then every edit would be an individual version. They would have to edit all. That's like 3 or 4 clicks further. With column formatting, you have out-of-the-box options to say, hey, I'm going to put an edit icon in here, and people go directly to the edit properties of the form of the document, the metadata of the document. Okay. Now, you probably already saw that I also customized. Is there a question for me somewhere?
Sorry, I was just confirming that the yes, please referred to you making the template available.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Yes. Okay. So when you click on the edit properties, you see here this form in which I have customized. there is a new functionality, I think about half a year ago, where you were able to edit the form without the use of Power Apps. And you could just group the columns, because originally, let's have a look at how this originally looks like in a document library. You would have this, I call it a boring form, where it just shows all the columns below each other and no formatting possible, no grouping possible. And within some new functionality that I'm going to demo right now is in my library, you can do it like this. You can just select the item, then you have the properties here. And this is like the old way. And then you can have here the menu where you say configure the layout. You just configure the layout, and again some JSON functionality. And as you can see, I will not explain the code. I will show you later on what it does. But you have like 3 regions, 3 sections that you can format. There's like the header, the body, and the footer. And what does this mean for our example here? You have the header on the top, you have the body in the middle, and you have the footer on the bottom. And what it basically does is that you can reference, I think this is the most simple code in JSON that I've ever seen. You can create sections. As you see, I've created a section here with a display name called properties, and it shows the name, title, and document type. You see properties, it shows the column name, title, and document type. Then I have a section called workflow, which is an indication about the status of the workflow. And then I've created like a read-only section that shows the flow outcome and the flow status. As you can see here, it also shows the content type, but the flow status and the flow outcome shows here. And then at the footer, yes, Andreas, thank you. Thank you for sharing. This is excellent. Thank you for sharing the links. Based on this, I just created a mail to link that when people click on this, they have like, you can see it in the, it's not very readable, but it's a mail to link that sends an email or how do you say, it creates a draft email, and it will give you, let me give you an example to see if my Exchange will open. Here in my example, it opened up my email, and based on this configuration that you see here, it sends an email to this email inbox. This is my demo, but it could be like a shared mailbox of IT. It gives you a subject and the body of the people. They can type any question here. So this is a very simple way to improve the document property editing experience compared to the default out-of-the-box document library that you get. I'm gonna close this one. Save changes. So this is just one step before Power Apps, because you can also create Power Apps now on document library forms. But this is just a very simple way without me having to create a Power App to make the form a little more appealing. And as you can see here, you can also use the same type of column formatting, a big part of it, in your form. Because as you can see that here, I'm referencing the title of my document. So this is the document details for speaker recording instructions. And the icon, I will give you an example. This one was completed. Then you will see the icon in green. This one was rejected. Then I can see the icon in red. So some very basic details with column formatting, form formatting, that a lot of examples are out there just to make life more easier for your end user. And of course, show it in Microsoft Teams. And that's why I used the WebTab tab. Because this one integrates seamlessly within all those functionalities that I want to show. So this was a big part of the demo when it comes to the SharePoint experience. Then the use case about the document approval, because that's the main thing in the session. The experience that I want to create is that when Anne would upload a document, let's say I'm going to upload 2 documents. One is like an image, then I want to share with my team. And the other one is like instruction. Just drag and drop. You would never without me having to leave Teams. And now I have 2 documents here. And as you can see that this document have the status new, which means no flow has ever been completed on it. And based on this setting, I am going to edit the properties because I want to start the approval flow. So let me open up the document details. Let me select the right document just to be sure. This one. So this is like an instruction. We have created some extra metadata to indicate what type of document it is, a very common use case. And this is like a supporting image. And I want to start the flow. And I'm going to save the document. And now at the back end, a Power Automate flow monitors this document library, and it will start the flow. Let me do the same as an example for the second one. We have another example. So this would be next to the supporting image. This would be like, call it a pre-event presentation. Let's call this yes, and save. And as you can see that now it's in a pending state. So in the column formatting, I made sure that people will not edit the documents while it's starting. You see, this one is now already running, and this one is going to run. And I made a separation between those two. But now, as you can see at the back end, the process has been started to run to make sure that people do not edit the document properties while the flow is running. As you can see, when I click on this, I can edit the document properties and the information panel pops up. But when I click on this, nothing happens except maybe I select the item. But as you can see, I also changed the icon of my mouse to indicate that, hey, be aware, the flow is already running, leave the document alone. So this is, it's not foolproof. There are still ways that you can crash the flow, but there are like two use cases that I like to separate with my customers. I want to build a tool that will help you in the guidance of the process, which is like the MVP, the minimum viable product, another abbreviation. It just helps within the process, but it isn't foolproof, because that's the second case when you need to create a full monkey-proof scenario where anything that you want to do could, you want to prevent that from stopping the flow. You need a lot of unhappy paths to cover. So in the first scenario, I just want to have the happy path because most of my users follow instructions very well. But in some departments, like IT departments, where people always want to try to break stuff, you want to go for the second scenario and make sure that it's foolproof. And then you increase your business complexity. You increase your testing scenarios, because then you need all these scenarios that you want to cover. Just keep aware that start with the MVP, the minimum viable product. And from there on, determine in every sprint, iteration, or next step that you want to add to your product, be aware that what is the added value of this. Just a tip from my side. Okay, so this was the use case about Anne. Anne just uploaded the document. She edited the document properties, and she started the workflow on it. Any questions on this use case of Anne? No, I see a lot of links being shared. Great, I will also add these links to the presentation so we can share the presentation. That's very good. And while she started the flow, now the next persona comes in place. And that's Sven. Sven is the one who approves the documents. So let me get Sven. Sven is here. Let me zoom in. Yes, I thought this would happen. And the login timeout, of course, Office 365 is very safe. So this is Sven. He works from his mailbox. And you can see right out of the bat that he is able to approve the documents from his mailbox without leaving his mailbox, which also means that he will be able to approve. And this is the modern approval of Power Automate. He will be able to say, okay, to this document, because this was the user instruction or the event presentation. And now he's going to say no to this one. I'm going to park this one because this is the way that he can do it. But there's also, and you can see already the notification coming in within Microsoft Teams. Let's say that Sven, as a sales representative, has finally grown up and he wants to use Microsoft Teams more than he's using his mailbox. he is able to use the document approval center out of the box within Microsoft Teams to also approve or reject these requests. So this is the one that was just approved from his mailbox a few seconds ago. And the other request I'm going to approve from within the approval center within Microsoft Teams. I think this morning there was also a session about the approval center. I think Marcin from Poland, a very nice session. I recommend to check on it as the recordings are coming in. He can link to the document anytime he wants. As you can see, this is the image from the speakers list of today, and you can just see the document without having to go to SharePoint. So, which is a very cool use case, right? Without going to SharePoint, I can approve it directly from my mailbox. There's also a link to the document here. And if I work a lot in Microsoft Teams, I can use the same setup to say, okay, please add other speakers to image and reject it. And if we now go back to Anne, you will see that she gets notified about the approvals. So you can see that the final status is approved for the other one and rejected for the second one. And eventually, she also may be notified by email about those approvals. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is, I hope that I have one prepared already. Let's say that you want not to use the modern document approval that uses the approval center or uses the mailbox functionality here. Let me refresh this one just to show you that this is integrated and that I already rejected and approved. This one is that you can see here that this one was approved with comment OK, and this one was rejected and it completed request. So it's all integrated. The email gets the latest status, the approval center gets the latest status. So when you're starting with approval, I would recommend this way. Another cool one is to use adaptive cards. And adaptive cards look something like this. When Anne would start the approval on a specific document type, or maybe another person has configured that Sven does not want to use the modern approval center, but he wants to use adaptive cards, then you can create your flow to do something like this, where it sends an approval card like this, where you see data as an adaptive card, and it comes in with the flow bot. It gives you an adaptive card that gives you all these options from, hey, Sven requested this. This is the path of the document. You can assess the request here. You can chat directly with Sven. You can send an email to Sven. You can open the document, just like the example that I showed you earlier. Here is a PDF. And of course, the two buttons to approve or reject. So let's say he's going to approve. Very nice. And then Sven has approved from within the adaptive card without needing to use the email inbox, without the approval center. This is just a third use case in a way that you can approve using the Power Automate approval within your flow. Any questions about the use case of Sven and the approval options that he has? Don't see any questions. Otherwise, also feel free to unmute or ask them later on. We're ahead of schedule. That's good. Then, of course, the last use case is, I think I shared it already, is Carlos. Carlos does not want to be bothered about any of the technical stuff. He just wants to know which documents have been approved and which documents are available for him and his team to make sure that he has the right information. And that's a big same kind of way integrating. When I look at Anne, when Anne looks in her team, looking at the approval library, you can see that she may have 100 documents with the current status, but for Carlos, only interesting is what is completed and approved. And as you can see a few seconds ago and a few minutes ago, the status was changed to approved. This is a very simple filter on the Sharepoint library, no complex logic behind this. It just filters the library. Carlos has added it to his Microsoft Teams team, his Contoso call center team, and anyone wanting to know the last information about the recording instruction, about the login, about the low-code platform, they just check the documentation here, and then they have no noise about all the other processes that they don't need to be a part of. So Carlos' life is much easier. Any questions about Carlos? Okay, thank you. Then, of course, the promise that I made is, what does this mean? Let me go back to the presentation, looking at the agenda. It means that when it comes to Dataverse for Teams and Power Platform as a whole, in the old world, if Anne would have completed this business application and the pilot team was wrapped up and everyone was happy, she would probably have to rebuild a big part of her solution in another Microsoft Teams team or another SharePoint site, and had to duplicate those activities multiple times if you want to use it multiple times. And if there would be an update, like an improved version with more configuration or a typo that has been corrected, she would have to correct it multiple times every time it was duplicated, the business app. The promise of Dataverse for Teams and the promise of Power Platform solutions is that those separate components building your solution, so in this case, it was a Power Automate flow, it was a SharePoint site, a Microsoft Teams team, that those components would be easier to build, and it would be easier to wrap it up as a package and share it with others. And that's the big promise of the Power Platform when it comes to Dataverse for Teams and the Power Platform solution concept. I'm doing a little bit of a shout out to my next session during the ESPC 21. I'm going to do a deep dive on the application lifecycle management options that I'm just briefly touching right now in the time that we have left. It's more a deep dive on this use case and how Anne would be able to share this solution within a few clicks and deploy the solution within a few clicks, making her life much easier and making updating also much easier. Because still, the Power Platform is not a magic tool that prevents you from creating ugly solutions, but it gives you the option that if you have a solution that you are proud of, to share it easy, wrap it up as a package, and then share it and deploy it very easy. We call that the one-click deployment. And based on that, I can show you, I think in the few minutes that we have left, the Teams as a platform demo, because what does this mean for Anne? Within the Microsoft Teams, you have the app catalog. And within the personal apps, you have the Power Apps app that you can add to your Microsoft Teams team. This is your individual personal Power Apps app that you can use to create your Power Platform solutions. And it's related to your Microsoft Teams team. And that's the Dataverse for Teams concept, your Microsoft Teams as a platform concept. And you will see that she has created document approval Microsoft Teams team. She has enabled the Power Platform, her Dataverse for Teams functionality within her Microsoft Teams team. And she has created all these components. And the cool thing is that I'm going to show you at ESPC 21. So be sure to also register if you have time at the beginning of June, that if she wants to share her flow, which is a cloud flow, and she wants to use the document approval flow and export it as a package, which is a Power Platform solution, she can export it. It shows her dependencies, and these dependencies are very useful. And when you export it as a package, she would be able to go to another Microsoft Teams team. And in here, she would be able to import that package and get it out of the box working after a few adjustments, not a lot of adjustments, just a few adjustments. She would be able to have the flow working on another library, and a second library, a third library, a fourth library within a second, third, or fourth team. And that's what I wanted to leave you with, is that in the next few months, this will become easier and easier. Create your business app within your Teams team, export it as a solution, share the solution with another Microsoft Teams team, and let them reap the benefits that you have done within your pilot team. So I think 44 minutes, that's good. Usually I'm a little bit over time. We have some 6 minutes left. I aimed for 40 minutes, so you could also say that I'm 4 minutes over time. Let's get back to the presentation. I still want to make sure that you give us feedback about the sessions that we give, mention us, and give also feedback to the organizers of this great community event. And yeah, hope to see you at the next session.
Fantastic session. Thank you so much for that. And I think there's just so much gone in that there just aren't any questions. Hopefully that means you've covered everything, right?
Let's hope so. And feel free to connect with LinkedIn or Twitter if you have any questions or you saw something that you thought very cool. Also, when people are watching the recording later on, it's all open source. It's all community freeware. I'll share it gladly with you.
Thank you so much for that. And it's a really great session. So, and congratulations on becoming a new MVP. Well done.
Yeah, thanks.
That's always nice to celebrate. So, and you've got a thanks there in the feedback. So that's great.
Andreas. Yes.
Thank you, Andreas. So I think, you know, that's a great session and leads us straight into a break before the next session. And I think we have Dr. Flo coming up, Serge Luca.
Yeah, nice.
One of my favourite speakers.
Yeah,
yeah, so we'll take a short break before that. If you've got any questions on this session, or if you want to give any feedback specific to this session, I'll put the feedback link in the comments in a moment. And it's really important to us to get that feedback to the organisers and back to the speakers about which bits you liked, where you wish you would have gone deeper in, or any of that feedback. Always really helpful when you're creating a session for community and you want to kind of get a bit of direction on that. So please do give us some feedback. As you said, this will be on YouTube as well, so you can add comments on the bottom of there, or you can just go and find our speakers on Twitter and LinkedIn and start a direct conversation. And you'll be surprised just how engaging all of these speakers are. And I'm sure you'll agree, you know, if people ask you direct questions about your session, you're always happy to have a conversation about them and kind of do a bit of a deeper dive. Simply, we all just love talking about what it is that we do, right?
Yes.
So do go and link in, and as you were saying earlier, make some noise about this event too. If you're enjoying it, let us know on social media as well as on that feedback form. So thank you. That was an excellent session, really clear. Yeah. All the way through. Fantastic. And we will say thank you to you and go on to a break. I'll put the slide up for what's coming next. And hopefully we'll see you in the room in about 15 minutes or less.
Yeah, don't forget the lunch.
Oh, yeah. Go get something to eat and come back.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
We'll see you in a moment.